first of all, by telling everybody I finally made it on stage. That's it. Actually, this is an achievement. Just based on that, this was worthwhile. So I think I'm going to be somewhat focused then on the screen there. But in any case, Leo provided a title for the presentation. So he said, you should talk about the status of fuel cell research and industry in the US. And I thought, how can I address this? Kind of jazz it up, kind of change it around a bit. So I just came up with 3 questions. Where is the US market now? What does the DOE do to address technical competitiveness for hydrogen and fuel cell technologies? And this is an international setting, so what can we do as a worldwide community to advance hydrogen and fuel cells? So where's the US market now? We see increased market growth, infrastructure progress, and niche markets emerging. Take a minute to grasp this. When I started working with fuel cells, late 90s, they used to tell me, oh, they're going to be like cars, there's going to be like a Mercedes on the road by 2004, et cetera, et cetera. Finally, though, in the US, we do see cars on the road. So we have actual commercially available fuel cell electric cars. Talking about the Hyundai, the Toyota Mirai, and the Honda Clarity to this date, fast refueling up to 360 miles driving range and up to 66 miles per kilogram of hydrogen. So that's pretty impressive. In terms of growth, Bart was mentioning the number of cars in California and the incentives that they have. But what's really interesting is every time I give a presentation, let's say every 1-2 months, the number rapidly changes. So we're nearing 3,000 cars, for the most part in California, sold or leased. And that number is rapidly ramping up. What's really interesting and what I have on the slide as well is that KPMG actually interviewed 1,000 senior executives at major automotive OEMs. And 78% of the executives absolutely or partly agree that fuel cell cars will be the real breakthrough for electric mobility. When asked about battery electric vehicles, that number dropped to 62%. So the community does actually believe in the technology. But it's not only cars. There's been an increase in global shipments in terms of both units and megawatts shipped. For the majority, we see a lot of advances and an increase in deployments on PEM fuel cells and for the transportation sector. That kind of links to the previous slide that I show. So 500 megawatts fuel cell power shipped worldwide, and this is again worldwide deployments, 62,000 fuel cell units, $1.6 billion in fuel cell revenue. So we're seeing progress there. It's not only a technology that's demonstrated in the lab, but we do actually see products on the street, on the road, in the field. And as I said, what's really interesting, in the past we had a lot of shipments and units on stationary power, and this kind of shifting excuse me, to transportation and for a low temperature PEM as well. On the hydrogen side, we're not probably can show the numbers that Europeans or the Japanese do or project. Still though, flagship state being California, there are over 30 open retail stations, and they've got funding for 100. It's not only though California, we're trying to look at other states and other regions as well. Closely behind is the Northeast, approximately 12 to 25 stations planned. And we see a lot of interest from states that have some traditional fuel cells like Ohio or South Carolina, Hawaii, but also new ones that are coming in, Texas and Colorado, for instance. Niche markets, emerging markets, there are markets out there that really picked off because there is a business case. In the case for forklifts, for instance, the fast refueling, the limited downtime, the limited space that you need because you don't need that space to store batteries are actually do support a business case. And that's manifested by the fact that back in 2009, 2010, we invested in about 700 forklifts that were subsidized by the DOE, and we're over 60,000 forklifts to date. Similar story for backup power units for telecom, starting off with 900 backup power units. There are more than 7,500 backup power units in the states to this day. And I want to talk about some of the newer applications that are emerging, and Bart actually alluded to that a bit as well. On the heavy-duty vehicle side, for instance, we do have for medium-duty trucks and delivery trucks, parcel trucks, UPS and FedEx are demonstrating fuel cell trucks in California, New York, in Sacramento, and Albany, New York, respectively. So that's a demo that started this summer. Buses, you all know about them. You don't have the number of buses that the Europeans have on the road, but there are pockets of really transit authorities that have taken the lead there, like the Sun Transit down in Palm Springs, or the one in the Bay Area, which is shown on the screen here, where they have a bus that, in California, the bus in California has surpassed 17 million passengers. One of those buses, if you go to Berkeley, usually you see it riding around, packed, has demonstrated more than 25,000 hours durability. And there are a lot of buses that were more new in their deployment that are approaching that number. That is our durability. That was our ultimate durability target. And as we see, the cost is rapidly going down as well. Military applications, Army Target and GM have a close collaboration for demonstrating the ZH2. It's based on a Colorado Chevy vehicle. Advantages being here, silent operation and the emission of water, which makes it really attractive for desert-type applications. And last but not least, Toyota announced their first heavy-duty truck, which they put on the road in California. And that's an application that actually is whetting our appetite a bit. We're trying to come up with preliminary targets, and we're looking into pushing that forward and taking advantage of all the progress that's been achieved with on the light-duty side. We've had issues in the States. There are issues with the grid. There are issues with resiliency, impact of climate, and we've seen through recently through the hurricanes that we've had. And this is a place where fuel cells can really play an important role. During Hurricane Sandy, for instance, fuel cells did keep the lights on, the phones on for a lot of places like hospitals and telecom. If you don't know this, the World Trade Center in New York has a fuel cell installed into it. There are over 235 megawatts of stationary power across 40 US states. And again, as Bart mentioned, maritime ports, there's a lot of interest due to environmental benefits that you get, and also there's a business case there in the use of fuel cells in ports, looking at Long Beach, for instance, the Port of LA, just naming a couple of examples there. So I think this is hopefully not stuck, which seems to be the case. Well, let me just try this. I don't know if this thing ran out or not. Okay, I think that's where it started working again. So question number 2, what does the DOE do to address technical competitiveness for hydrogen fuel cell technologies? We don't do deployment. We actually want to enable the market. So we want to develop a technology that's cost competitive and competitive with incumbent technologies on performance and durability. So what we do is we want to enable early stage R&D and also leverage activities to maximize impact. So as a program, for those who don't know, we are focusing mainly on R&D, applied, early stage, and emerging hydrogen fuel cell technologies, addressing the DOE's mission in terms of enhancing energy security, resiliency, and creating a strong domestic economy. So in terms of early R&D areas, there are efforts in fuel cells, PGM-free catalysts, looking at durable MEAs and enhancing electrode performance. On the hydrogen side, addressing hydrogen production, delivery, and onboard storage. And we have a lot of progress to demonstrate. So there's been a really positive impact of taxpayers' money on advancing the technology. Projected cost of fuel cells, I'll mention that a bit later, has really decreased. We've demonstrated a 4-fold increase in durability on on-road vehicles and 80% lower electrolyzer cost since 2002. So How do we do this? There's two things. First of all, we actually come up with targets, market-driven targets that will allow the technology to compete with the incumbent. So for instance, you can see in the green, I'm not going to go through these things, but we have actual targets for both fuel cells and hydrogen R&D, and the orange you see are actual projected numbers at high volume, and the red, the ones that we have for low volume. So there's been progress there, and we're getting there. We're still not there, so additional R&D and additional investment is required. We're also relying on techno-economic analysis to guide R&D. So we just don't come out of the blue with projects and calls. We're looking at our targets. We're looking at what needs to be done, and your actual projected analysis kind of guides you in that direction. For instance, for fuel cells, we see the catalyst, the biggest portion of the cost. So what we're doing is to focus on the catalyst side, but also on technologies, longer-term technologies that could facilitate the use of PGM-free catalysts, such as alkaline membranes. So for the hydrogen station, we see compression as an issue, looking at advanced compression and alternate approaches. Onboard storage, the cost of the carbon fiber is a big issue. So there are efforts on getting low-cost carbon fiber and other longer-term material approaches for hydrogen storage. More specifically for fuel cells, as I mentioned, the catalyst cost is projected to be the largest component of the cost of the polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cell, at high volume at least. And those are the volumes where you are at scale. The number that I have here, 100,000, is the one that actually competes with batteries, because batteries reach a scale of 100,000. For fuel cells, that's not the case. You reach economies of scale at higher volumes due to the sensitivity of the GDL and the membrane. And GDL and membrane cost is kind of highlighted at low volumes as well. The other thing that our analysis gives us is sensitivity. So it kind of tells us where do you need to work on in order to have the biggest impact. For instance, for fuel cells, it's the performance of the MEA. If you have an MEA that's really active, performing as it should be, with very low PGM, or no PGM eventually, then that also reduces the cost of the BOP and brings out the cost down. So our strategy is, again, based on all this, reduce and eliminate PGM levels and, as I said, improve MEA performance and durability. We've actually been able to demonstrate progress as well. We're projecting $45 per kilowatt at 500,000 systems per year, which is lab-demonstrated technology. Actually, the cost goes down as you go up in cost goes up as you go down in volume as expected. And for on-the-road competitive technology, based on the Toyota Mirai, we've projected it to be a ballpark at around $230 per kilowatt, and that's at about 1,000 units per year. Why have we been able to achieve it? It's basically, as I said, lab-demonstrated technology. A lot of it has to do with the advances that we've achieved on the catalyst side. So, as I mentioned, catalyst R&D, MEA R&D drives down cost. In 2017, we've been able to demonstrate catalysts with over 10 kilowatts per gram PGM, which exceeds our 2020 target of 8, and that actually had a really big impact in driving down cost. So we're on track to meet our $40, and we would need further advances to go down to 30, which is our ultimate. In terms of R&D approach, we have taken to the consortia type approach. It's not only for fuel cells, we see it for storage, production, and across various other programs throughout the renewable energy efficiency sector at DOE. One example is ElectriCat, the Electrolysis Consortium, which has a mission to accelerate the discovery and development of innovative catalysts and electrodes that would eliminate the use of PGMs on the cathode for the oxygen reduction reaction. We've got 4 labs here, 2 co-leads, Argonne and Los Alamos, as you know probably from yesterday. And it's not only looking at the core R&D to develop these catalysts, but they do have a suite of very valuable tools, characterization and testing, looking at high throughput, but also theoretical modeling, which is something we need to focus on a bit more. Preceding that, the first consortium that we came out with was FCPAD, and the mission of that was to advance fuel cell performance and durability. 5 labs there. I don't want to spend too much time on it. The objectives are to improve component stability and durability, cell performance with optimized transport, but also develop new diagnostics, characterization tools, and models. It's structured across 6-component and cross-cutting thrusts. A lot of this information regarding FCPAD you can find from PIs who are actually in the audience and also on our the documents that are posted on our site. And more recently, we've added associate partners in 2016 through a solicitation process, 3M, GM, UTRC, and one University of Vanderbilt. Somewhat different. You hear, especially from Sunita goes on the road and a lot of other people talking about hydrogen at scale. So hydrogen is part of a bigger ecosystem. It's not only hydrogen to fuel cell to power generation, and it addresses various things. Energy storage, for instance. It complements a lot of the renewables that are out there that was mentioned, like wind and solar, that need to be, when they need to be curtailed, that's where hydrogen can play an important role. But hydrogen has a use in industry, both at the transportation and the industrial sectors, and a lot of it, like in refineries, fertilizer production, and other end uses, we see that it could add a valuable financial stream and could actually advance the cause. What do we do for H2 at scale? It's more of a concept, but I think we're starting off a lot with analyses. Labs did a comprehensive assessment of resource availability for hydrogen at scale. Most regions can satisfy long-term demand for transportation and industrial sector. As you see in the red dots in the areas there are only a few regions where demand exceeds local supply. So NREL ran that study as a lead. Additionally, another comprehensive study, and kind of didn't turn out well on this slide as it was expanded, but nevertheless, NREL led a comprehensive station rollout to support H2 USA, which is a private-public partnership in the US, looking at variables such as, zero-emission vehicle, the ZEV states like California, market demand, and potential station scenarios out to 2050. So this is one initial H2S scale activity, and we do see that one of the projections, at least from that scenario, is close to 8,000 stations, hydrogen stations deployed by 2050 across key regions in the United States. And we're not going to be fully covering the whole country, obviously, but there are a lot of key regions that could be the lead for deploying cars and other technologies in the use of hydrogen. So last but not least, what can we do as a community to advance hydrogen and fuel cells? Pursue strong global collaboration to address remaining challenges, technical and otherwise, and share information. I think that kind of sums it up. Example is enabling R&D protocol harmonization. I just have one example there. Argonne and NREL work together to address a lot of the issues, and this is more in the weeds probably for the general public. It's more pertinent to researchers out there. You want to screen catalysts, you want to use RDE, a lot of variability. So what we did is we worked with the key labs. They got commercially available materials. They got polycrystalline platinum. They ran through best practices, protocols, ways to make sure that it's a useful tool, and ended up in disseminating that information in the citation that you see on the screen. On the global scale, just going up on the ceiling type view, everybody knows about the Hydrogen Council, promising over $10 billion of investment toward hydrogen and fuel cells. It was launched earlier this year. They want to work to position hydrogen among the key solutions of the energy transition at a global level. There are more than 15 companies, and these are hard hitters. They represent $1 trillion in revenues and 1.7 million jobs, so it's not for the weak-hearted. Getting information, disseminating that, one of the things that I would like to share with you is we do have data validation of real-world application through NREL's, I would say, secret facility. They get information, they get data on a variety of fuel cell applications and hydrogen. They disseminate that through composite data products. So you're a company A, B, C, they get their information, let's say on durability of a backup power unit or a car. They would put it in one product that's not attributable, so it helps everyone in the community. And for those who are interested, they can contact me. I've got their email. It's on the screen as well, but it's easier just to talk to me, and I can get you in touch if you're interested. It's hydrogen safety. So this is one thing that my boss, Sunita, really likes. She's gung-ho on hydrogen safety. So hydrogen safety is a priority. We all know that. So the DOE has launched H2 Tools. It's a portal with resources that enable a better understanding and increased awareness of key topics related to hydrogen safety, including the ones you see on the screen. Safety best practices, first responder training, which is really essential, and hydrogen codes and standards. The use of cars in big cities like New York and Boston render the need to have codes that allow the car to go under the rivers or in tunnels as well. So there's a lot of work that's happening in that area. And as Bart mentioned, there's going to be some collaborative effort with the EU and the EC on that. The portal is being used. It's been translated into Japanese as well. There are over 31,000 site visits in the first year alone. And a lot of those visits are international. So hydrogen safety and dissemination is an important aspect in building the comfort levels with using the technology. So what we're asking you is to disseminate hydrogen lessons. Most of you are very experienced in the field. There's a new generation and new people that are coming into the technology. So it will be good by sharing your experience to that area. What we do at DOE, actually, we sit every week through our staff meetings and actually go through the historical aspects of lessons learned and incidents and try to work with our research community in that area as well. So people need to know about this. Ways to spread the word, give and increase your H2IQ presentation community. Education is really important. Outreach is really important. Another thing that we do is we do have Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Day, and since Congress actually signed it this year, I can say National Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Day, October 8th. Why? Atomic mass of hydrogen is 1.008, as everybody knows. So there are a lot of activities that are happening in the U.S. and somewhat internationally as well on that day. So we're getting the word out way. So last but not least, I would like to thank you, and it's been a pleasure to be here. It's a beautiful country. It's the first time around. It's always a pleasure to be somewhere close to the Mediterranean, and being 100 feet from the hotel is perfect. Thank you very much.